Welcome back to the Sideline Live podcast. You can follow us over on Twitter and Instagram at the Sideline Live. We'd love to hear from you. On episode 102, I'm delighted to be joined by Tokyo 2020 Olympic boxer Emmett Brennan. On this episode, Emmet details his career, the setbacks he's had to endure, supporting himself through credit union loans, his mindset, training, injuries and so much more. I hope you enjoy. Hi Emmet, thanks a million for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks very much for having me. Thank you.
Before we get into everything, would you mind giving a quick elevator pitch to the listeners who might not know who you are?
Yeah, so I'm an Irish international boxer. I've boxed for Ireland for the last 5 to 6 years. I've represented Ireland in Tokyo 2020 or 2021, whatever you want to call it. And then I've represented Ireland, for the last 5 or 6 years. Across Europeans, multi-nations, 2-time Irish elite champion. And that's me in a nutshell. I've outside of boxing, I don't have a lot going on for me.
Okay, very good. Yeah, for you growing up, Emmet, what was it like growing up in North Strand? Talk us through a little bit of your childhood. Who or what got you involved in boxing as well?
Growing up, it was good. Like it's a working class neighbourhood. Not exactly a bad neighbourhood, not great either. I was never really in trouble as a kid. I was very, very introverted, but I was very good at sports. So no matter what sport I went into, I was quite decent or above average at, which is probably rare in kids to be good at everything they go into. They normally have a niche where they'd be very good at one sport. I was lucky enough to just take the sports very, very quick. And as I said, I was quite introverted, so that helped me come out of my shell a little bit. Predominantly, I would have played soccer up till 10, and then I joined a boxing club at 10 years of age. And I suppose from there, I just loved the sport. I loved the individual aspect of it. Although I played in team sports and I loved playing team sports, in a team sport, you're dependent on other people to perform as well. In boxing, obviously you need a good coach and a good backroom staff, but you're the one that puts the hours in, and if you don't perform, you don't win. If you perform well enough, you do win. I suppose it was the independence of boxing that I got hooked on, I think.
Do you think it was also being able to kind of put that responsibility on yourself rather than relying on 10 other teammates on the soccer pitch, that you can say, right, I've put in the work here, I've really put the effort in because I'm doing it for myself? And maybe sometimes when you're a team, some people don't take it as seriously, which is totally fine. But when you're, when you've big sporting aspirations and when you're competitive as you are, it's sometimes a little bit tricky in team sports.
Yeah, I think exactly that. And it's probably like you don't look back until you're a little bit older and you realise that probably was what it is. Like in terms of, I was always a very, very good trainer. I suppose like I probably liked although I never took to like success very well or winning very well. Again, that's probably a good attribute because you're always looking to do better. At least success and winning was solely on me, and I got the plaudits if I won, not the whole team. So that was probably something that I did enjoy. And like I suppose in school, like you might fight on your Friday night, you're going in on a Monday morning, people are asking, did you win or did you lose? Obviously, if you lose, you're a little bit embarrassed and more reserved in telling people. But if you win, you're over the moon. You're telling everyone that, I won on Friday night. And I suppose like as a kid as well, like it's the whole like Rocky thing as well. Like it's a movie in your head. And that caught my imagination as a kid. I loved I loved that it was on me.
Yeah, that's fair. I interviewed Damien Hughes at the High Performance podcast last year, and we spoke about his dad he ran a boxing gym in the UK, and we spoke about the discipline that it takes to be a boxer. And I see there's a boxing club near me, and there's a bridge, and they're going up and down the steps. They're actually some of the hardest training I've ever seen. What's that discipline like going in as a kid? Like, how did you find originally like being so disciplined and going through these really, really tough training sessions?
Yeah, and again, you don't realise that until you look back when you're a bit older, because as a 10-year-old, you probably don't know what discipline is or what structure is. But I think it's the structure of what the boxing clubs give the kids. So they know that they're at 7 o'clock on say a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Friday, they know if they're late, there could be possibilities of doing press ups or burpees or whatever it is. And they're like life lessons that eventually go into adulthood. You can't turn up late for work. So you're learning valuable lessons as a kid, although you don't exactly know that these are life lessons that you learn. But back to the whole structure thing. That's what probably I loved about it. So I knew I was going to train at 7. I knew at 7:15 I'd be doing my shadow boxing. At 7:30 I'd be in the ring, sparring or whatever it was. So I knew what my night was going to be like before I got there, and that's something that, because the best part of training as a kid, anyway, even as an adult, is the sparring bit, getting to hit people. So you know that's coming at 7:30, and you're looking forward to that.
Yeah, very good. Was there anyone in particular, coach or role model wise, that you that had an impact on you growing up? Was there anyone that you can kind of look back on and point the finger to?
Yeah, like I was very, very lucky. I started off in a boxing club called St. Saviour's in Dorset Street in Dublin, and at the time, so I joined boxing in, it would have been 2002, so 20 years ago. That club was the best club in Ireland at the time, or in the top 2 like every year. So I had like Darren Sutherland, who went on and won an Olympic bronze medal. I had a lad called Keith Boyle, Dean Murphy, Cal Bravazon. These are all elite boxers in Ireland, and they're all where I am now basically. And I was a 10-year-old looking in at this, so they were my idols as a kid. I didn't have much like the likes of Floyd Mayweather and all them. They weren't really idols of mine. It was the people that I had in the boxing club. And again, I'm looking back on this 20 years later, I was so lucky to be able to train with the people that I looked up to. And I definitely took inspiration from them. And they obviously, like, my goals was always to be an Irish elite champion and an Olympian. That obviously came from the atmosphere I was in and the people that was around. Like, so my goals and my dreams were based off what I walked into as a 10-year-old kid.
How do you find it now, kind of being on the flip side of that and having kids look up to you? Is it kind of this
Yeah,
moment where you kind of realise it?
It's nothing that I do ever really think of, to be honest. But I suppose like my story of getting to the Olympics is a little bit different, because I've never really had the success at international level, or I never really had like, I didn't win my first Irish elite title till I was 25. So in terms of like what I probably offer as a role model, it's probably like resilience and keep on knocking at the door and don't give up. It's probably not being an Olympic champion or a world champion, because I was never that, but the percentage of kids that are going to be a world and Olympic champion is very, very minimum. But the percentage of kids that's going to mess up in life and probably want to come back at another chance, there's going to be plenty of them. So I suppose my story would offer positivity and encouragement to people that are going to mess up down the line. And look, the majority just mess up at least once in their life.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it, because there is, people, again, that's going back to your role models. You weren't looking up to the fellas on the TV, you were looking up to the guys that were in the same boxing gym as you.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose, like, if you can sort of see yourself in a role model, it's easier to become like them.
Absolutely. For you then, for your ability, I get the sense, even you mentioned it kind of there, and I've heard you speak before, that your ability is mainly based on work ethic rather than, talent, natural talent. It's kind of like that quote, when hard work beats talent, when talent fails to work hard.
Yeah, like in terms of, so if I was a professional fighter, I'd be very, very talented, because you need like durability, you need strength, you need endurance to go over the longer rounds. Whereas amateur boxing, you need like to be very, very quick. You need to be very, very flexible, very sharp and counter punching, because it's a sprint, it's 3 3-minute rounds. And that's not really my game. My game is over the longer distance. But yeah, I realise there's a way that I can overcome that, and that's through hard work, through mental strength, through really believing that I can make up for the abilities that I don't have with my mindset. And as I said, I'm more a pressure fight that will work better over 12 rounds, but I can still use that pressure to take people out over 3 rounds. And that's what I do. sometimes I'm successful at it, other times I'm not. Whereas if you're a very, very good technical counter boxer and amateur boxing, you're gonna win most of your fights because that's the name of the game.
I was interested to learn that you actually left boxing in your 20s for a couple of years. You kind of you didn't pursue it for a while. You were working and you had other things going on.
Yeah, I just like yeah. So I sort of stopped. Not that like I was never 100% out of a boxing club. So
Okay.
I sort of stopped really competing at like 22, but I'd still be down the club like in drifts and drafts. Again, like I had other things going on. I was 22. I had to earn money. So I was out, I was doing like an apprenticeship at the time in plumbing, something that I didn't really like at the time, but that was when when I was like 22, we just come out of a recession. So I just took wherever job was going. Yeah, I fell away from the sport, lots of drinking and same doing what you do as a 22-year-old. But that's if you're a normal 22-year-old, not an athlete. I probably should have been in the gym night and day trying to get better at boxing, but I wasn't. And that's just, again, that's part of my story. I went back then at 24, 25, and I went full on at being an Olympian. But like again, they're 2 to 3 years that I really lost out on. I could have been in this situation a few years earlier. And like, look, obviously you do sort of regret them, but it's part of your story.
Exactly. I even interviewed Africa, one of the rowers that won the bronze medal in Tokyo, and she said she stepped away for now. It was only a couple of months when she was 18. I think it was around the leaving cert. But like it happens, people do step away from sport and they come back, and sometimes they're better athletes. But the main thing is they own their story and say, this is, that time I spent away is still part of my journey.
Yeah, and look, everyone has a different story. What works for me mightn't work for you, and vice versa. I suppose the main thing is you do eventually come back to it. And if you don't come back to it, it's about living the best possible life you can do as a person. And for some people, sports might not be that. It could be going into business or whatever it is, or it might just be a normal family life. But it's about living the best possible life you can. I'm not 100% on this, but someone that told me like Dan Carter, when he was like 30 or 31, he had a good bit of time out through injury or whatever. I think it was through injury. He had like maybe a year out, but I think he sort of said that's part of the reason why he could go on and play till he was a little bit older, because he actually had that time out of the sport, and where he wasn't getting as much knocks or wherever it may be. It made him go on for an extra year or two.
Yeah, he actually did a podcast with the high performance guys. You'll have to give
Yeah, I
that one a
listened to
listen.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Mm.
What changed for you? What was the spark to come back to the sport? Was it just kind of this moment of realization? What brought it back for you?
Yeah, I suppose like as I said, I was never 100% away from the sport. But I hadn't fought in 2 years, and I was coming to the boxing club and drifts and drafts. I wasn't committed. And I was just going through a little bit of a tough time mentally, and I needed to I needed that structure back in my life, and I needed something to focus on. And all I've ever really known from, I suppose, 14 years of age up, I was boxing was my sole sport. So I went back. Initially, I went back. I was because there was sort of an opening at my way for the 2016 Olympics, and as soon as I came back, I broke my ankle playing football. So I realised 2016 was completely off the cards. Probably never on the cards in the first place, but that's where I initially come back for. And then I won a tournament in 2016, a month before the Olympics. I was back then, and I beat the number two on Ireland at my weight at the time. Obviously, the number one was going to the Olympics. The number two went to a different competition, and I was like, Jesus, I'm only back training. Like at this time, I was only back training like 6 to 8 weeks, and I was at the beating the number two in the country. I was like, if I put my head to it in the next 4 years, there's no reason why I can't become an Olympian. And that's gone back to as I was a kid. My role models were Olympians. They weren't these big professional boxers. So I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted as a kid. And it just ignited the flame again. And I went after that full throttle.
That's actually something I want to talk about, was your journey to the Olympics. It's probably a different one, as you mentioned, to everybody else. You even took out credit union loan to back yourself. You didn't have funding up until really 2020, just the year before the Olympics.
Yeah. So again, it was like, it was a mental thing going after the Olympics. It wasn't solely for money or solely for ego or anything like that, or like a flex, if you want to call it. It was solely a mental thing. It was a journey for myself, and I didn't really care if I went broke along the way, or no matter what happened to me. All I really cared about was, if I gave 100% of myself for that Olympic cycle. Again, if I didn't qualify for the Olympics, not that I wouldn't have been happy with it, but I would have accepted that once I gave 100% to the journey. And I did give 100% to the journey, and that's probably what got me over the line to get to Tokyo, because there was many bumps along the way. Probably a lot more bumps than the ordinary person would have taken, but I had the mental strength and the will to get over the line.
Where did you develop that mental strength for you, Emmet? Was it something you always had? Was it something you had to work on? Where did that come from?
It was something that I had to work on. I didn't always have it. So before the Olympic cycle, it wasn't something that I had. It could have possibly come from, like, I didn't win an Irish title until I was 20. So I'm thinking the resilience, because I never actually thought about it too much, but I'm thinking the resilience could have come from all the championships that I lost on the way up. Like, I lost out on maybe 8 Irish finals before I actually won one. So if you look back on that, that is building resilience year after year after year after year. At the time, it probably doesn't feel like that. But yeah, I've never actually thought about where I got it from. Looking back, that could be a reason. Another reason could be, I just got this goal in my head. And I think it was a journey of changing rather than changing in a split second. I think I changed over the whole process of what would have been 4 years, ended up being 5 years. So yeah, I don't think it happened overnight. It was a succession of things happening, and that's what led to the resilience, I suppose.
When you mention all of the setbacks, like 8 finals, you're missing out on 8 finals and then win the title, are you more motivated by those setbacks, those times you mightn't have reached your goal, or when you win the title? What is it for you?
So I had a talk with a group on Saturday, and yeah, like, winning doesn't overly satisfy me, and it's a strange feeling, because why would you keep going back and back and back and putting your body through this amount of torture and sacrificing so much in terms of your lifestyle if you never really enjoy the success? Because once I get anywhere near success, or if I do become successful or win something, I'm always thinking in my brain, what's next? I might enjoy it for that night, but I wake up the next morning thinking, what's next? What can I win now? What can I go after? But if I lose something, I'll be devastated for weeks or months. So it's like, when I'm going after something, it's the fear of failure that probably drives me on more than the feeling of success. Like, I can probably remember now off the top of my head a lot more times when I got beaten rather than a lot more times when I won. So yeah, I think what drives me on in terms of boxing is the fear of failure.
Because that's something that kind of came out in your interview straight after your fight in the Olympics. It was, you weren't happy to be an Olympian. You wanted to progress. You wanted to win the fight. But it's kind of like that thing in sport. You kind of get it, you're always looking forward, what's next, rather than maybe settling in and kind of saying, geez, actually, it's hard to at the time, I suppose, but being able to check the box of being an Olympian.
Yeah, like, yeah, of course it's hard at the time. And like, I saw something when I done that talk on Saturday, I just realised myself that maybe I do have to start maybe celebrating successes a little bit more. That's something that when I came away from the talk, that's where I thought of straight away, because like, I haven't, obviously I didn't get that far, but I know if I had a medal at the Olympics, I would have never been as happy as I should have been. And that's probably a bad trait to have. You should celebrate your successes, because again, you don't know when they're gonna come again. And that was the last time I was in the boxing ring. So if there's an experience that I took from that, it's like you don't know when your career is going to be over. So if I do ever get back in the ring, or even if I don't get back in the ring and it's in terms of business, I do have to celebrate the successes, no matter how big or small they are.
Absolutely. That's actually something Brian Gregan, he actually has a similar enough journey to you. He's a runner, and he kind of said his friend kind of said a phrase to him, celebrate every PB as if it's your last, because for Brian, he had gone through, similar to you, so many injuries, so many setbacks. It was so long for him to go back and running, and for you to be, to be an Olympian, that was the last time you've actually been in the ring.
Yeah, like, again, because at the time when you're boxing or you're running or whatever it may be, you never think, unless you're set on, this is my last fight or my last sporting event, I'm going to retire after this. If that's not in your head, you never have the feeling that this is going to be your last time doing it. And one thing that I do miss is I miss being part of that boxing team. I miss the whole structure about me, like being part of the Irish team. Although at the time, it's very, very tough and it's very hard on the body. Again, it's hard mentally. The structure of that is something that I do miss a lot. And the stuff that you shouldn't really take for granted.
I was really interested. You spoke about the qualifiers for that, and how you hadn't actually ever won a medal for Ireland, but you still went to the qualifiers. I heard it, took a quote from it, I believe I can beat anybody. Where does that belief and confidence come from for you? Is that something, again, that you always had? Did you have to work on it? Was it the setbacks that brought it out for you?
Yeah, it's something that I never really had until I came back to boxing. I suppose before that, I never really was 100% ready for a competition. So, and I never went into a competition thinking I was going to really win it. I just went in to enter the competition. And when I came back to the sport and I dedicated so much of my life, I was entering competitions to win. So that's where I get my confidence from, the preparation, knowing that I've ticked all the boxes, knowing that I've done all my running, I've slept correctly, I was eating correctly, I was hydrated. No, all these small boxes. That's where I get me confidence from. If I wasn't prepared, I wouldn't be as confident. And then on top of that, boxing is 1v1, whereas if you're running or wherever it may be, track and field, you know what your PB is and you know what Usain Bolt's PB is. So you know you can't really beat Usain Bolt unless he falls during the race. Whereas if you're in a fight, 1v1, you could be fighting the best person in the world, but you have your best day and he doesn't have his. You can beat him, or you can beat her, wherever it may be. So it's not. Whereas in the likes of athletics, you do, and in boxing you do have levels, but there can be an upset on the day. In terms of other sports, maybe not so much. Like a lot of the Irish runners or field and track athletes would be there to get PBs or to reach a final because they know physically they can't be the likes of Usain Bolt. But in boxing, you can do that with belief and having a great game plan on the day.
That's a great way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
I clearly don't have a background in boxing.
Yeah.
I've never thought of it like that, but that's a great mindset to have, that it doesn't matter who you are, it's 1-1, and
Yeah, like
anything can
it
happen.
is 1v1, and like if you go into a fight thinking that you're not gonna win, the likelihood is you're not gonna win. If you go into a fight thinking you're gonna win, yeah, you might get beaten, but you definitely do up the chances of upsetting the favourite.
Talk us through a normal training week for you. Let's say preparing for the Olympics. Talk us through Monday to Sunday. What would you do? What's your training like?
Yeah, so it would normally be when I was with the Irish team, we would be out in Abbottstown and we'd be there Monday to Friday. So you would do 2 sessions Monday to Thursday. So it normally look like, it depends. It could be, what would you do? Yeah, you'd probably do running Monday and Wednesday, and then strength you'd probably do Tuesday and Thursday, and then you do boxing as well on them days at the later time. So strength and running in the morning times, you're boxing in the evening time, and then on a Friday you do 1 session, and then you'd go back to your club, and I would train on a Saturday morning with my boxing club, and then maybe do some sort of recovery session stretching out, or a light run on a Saturday evening, and then full day of rest on Sunday.
Okay, so you're pretty much 2 days, 4 days a week. Like you've 2 sessions a day. That's very
Yeah,
intense.
yeah. It's very, very intense, and I suppose, like, looking back, maybe I should have been doing a little bit less training, because I was a little bit older than all the guys, and I probably wasn't individualized as much as it should have been. Like an 18-year-old, 50 kilo man or woman probably has a lot more in the tank than a 31-year-old, 30-year-old at the time at 81 kilos. So looking back, I probably should have tamed me training back a bit. But again, there's a team of maybe 30 to 40 boxers. It's very hard to individualize it.
Yeah. Eating wise, you must have been putting down some serious calories to maintain your weight at that training level.
Yeah, especially like, so when I went so I initially boxed at 75 kg, and then I went up a weight. And then if you're doing that much training, you're talking, for me, it would have been a minimum of 3,000, and then probably 3 to 4,000 calories. Not a lot for someone that's training that much, because at the same time, it's you have to make your weight, so you can't go really too much over the weight. But 3 to 4,000 calories is a lot if you're looking at the average person. That would have been about maintenance level for me, and then I probably would have pulled it back a small bit when I was trying to make weight.
What got you out of bed in the morning, even now with an injury, to do a tough session? I'm sure there was already early morning sessions. What gets you out of bed to keep going and to keep training? Particularly maybe during the Olympics when it was so up in the air whether it was going ahead or not with COVID.
Yeah, it was the preparation phase where I went back to earlier. My confidence comes from preparation. And then, look, well, we're in a lucky position that we could train. We're training out in Abbottstown with the best fighters in the country, with the best coaches, with the best facilities. So although you've done the work to get yourself there, you still can't take them things for granted. And I like training, especially now that I'm injured and I'm looking back. I missed the structure. As I said, I missed the structure of being out with the Irish team. I missed the whole just being around the team and not training on your own. Looking back, I definitely did take it for granted at the time. But look, training is part of who you are as an athlete. Some people actually probably don't like training. I like it. It is tough at times. Obviously, the likes of running sessions, I get anxiety and all thinking about them. But once they're finished, you're thankful that you've done it. And again, you're ticking boxes. You're doing stuff that I suppose the ordinary person isn't doing. That's a good feeling.
Kevin McManaman was involved with the high performance boxing setup. What did he bring to you guys from that mental preparation?
Yeah, like obviously I'm a Dublin fan as well, so
no better man to get involved then, yeah.
No better man. Like, geez, he's like a god to me uncles, so they were loving that he was part of the team. And yeah, like, so obviously he's part of the most successful Dublin team ever. And you must have serious mental strength to come back year after year after year and just to even compete, let alone win that many Irish titles. So he obviously had something mentally that was very, very strong. And then he's gone off himself and he's educated himself in psychology. So he brings the education along with the experience, and you can't beat that. And on top of that, he's a very, very sound lad. So he's easy to get on with, even outside of the professional setting. So if you're just talking in terms of you're at a training camp or whatever it may be.
Is there any particular mental preparation that you do, any techniques that you found helpful? Visualization, I know you mentioned ticking off the boxes. That's something that a lot of athletes do, is they actually write down what they're doing and tick it off. Was there anything you specifically do from that mental preparation?
So I do some of that myself, where you tick her off, but I find sometimes, like, you might write something down, you don't look at it for 3 months, it sort of goes missing in the back of your notebook. I suppose when I was injured, I'd be doing a lot of like looking at boxing, because like coming up to the Olympics, I couldn't punch. We were in a training camp and I actually wasn't really trained because my shoulder. So yeah, I done a lot of, like, even with Kevin, I'd done a bit of visualization where he would go over the 3 rounds, where he'd be talking me through it. It might be I have my eyes closed and he's going over me throwing combinations, and I'm thinking of that in my head, just so you can, I suppose, get some sort of stimulus that I wasn't really getting in training. And you'd have it like where it'd be that because we do 3 3-minute rounds, so the bell would start round one, you'd go through for 3 minutes, you get your minute break, another 3 minutes, that for 3 rounds. I find that did help. I suppose for myself, now that I'm away from that structure, what I'm doing to try keep myself mentally engaged in the sport is I'm down in the boxing club anytime it's training. I'm not boxing at the moment, but I'm looking at the lads and the girls training 3-4 nights a week. And my whole, I suppose, point of that is at the moment I physically can't box, which is obviously upsetting. But if I mentally come away from the sport as well, if I ever try to come back, it'd be very, very hard to come back.
Okay, yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I know you were sparring with you couldn't really box going into preparation for the Olympics, but you were sparring with Amy Broadhurst and Lisa O'Rourke, who have both now gone on to be world champions, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, so what happened was I had a shoulder injury and 2 elbow injuries, so I couldn't spar any of the lads just because the force would have been too much on the shoulder and the elbow. So I just done, I think it was 2 spars with the girls where they couldn't even go full on me, because if they did, it would have been too much force. So it was very, very easy in terms of effort that we all put in. But like, what a great decision by the Irish team to bring the 2 girls to the pre-camp, because less than a year later, they're both world champions. Look, that's not solely down to Boxing Ireland bringing them to the pre-camp. It's down to the girls' work ethic and the time and effort that they put into the sport. So yeah, that sounds great. To have 2 Irish champions from Ireland, something that hasn't probably been done before. Well, hasn't been done before.
With the Olympics, how did you find mixing with Team Ireland? I know with COVID, you were all in different camps and it was all a little bit different, but after kind of towards the end of the games when you were all done, I think you were out saying you were mixing with maybe the hockey players and all the different athletes. How was that to be in the village?
Yeah, sorry for putting over you. Yeah. It was actually good, because it's a bit strange, because we'd all trained out in Abbottstown for like the last 4 years, and weirdly enough, like there's no really like association with the teams out there. Like you might walk by and it might be an awkward, or how's it going, or hey, you don't really know anyone on a personal level. Sort of sports just stick between themselves, which is probably a bad thing when you're looking at it. It would be good to integrate with each other. I suppose when we got to Tokyo, yeah, we were, because you're Team Ireland and you're associating as Team Ireland, not as boxing, hockey, athletics. You're all one. There was more of a relationship and getting to know each other.
Mm-hmm. What's been? You're actually the first boxer I've had on, which is mad, because I always plan on getting someone on before this. But can you break kind of the biggest misconception of boxers? Is there anything that you hear you're like, that is really untrue about the sport or about us as athletes?
I can't really think of that off the top of my head, like, but I suppose it's probably a little bit different to most sports in Ireland, where it's nearly purely working class. Like, you're not really gonna get much boxing clubs in middle and higher classes, because it's a working class sport. That is slowly changing now, which is probably a good thing, because you want your sport to reach every corner of the country. Yes, there's nothing really that I can think of, but yeah, it's mostly working class at the moment. But look, that will change over time. And look, the sport's even grown on the female side, unbelievably. We have one of the best female countries in the world at boxing.
Yeah, brilliant. For you, whether it's with training or stepping inside the ring, is it more of a mental or physical challenge, boxing? What do you think?
Yeah, it's more of a mental challenge. I've seen boxers that have been technically very, very good, and they know how to hold themselves in sparring and in training, and for whatever reason, the second they come into a fight, they just fall apart. And sometimes that's just in you. It's the fight or flight. like it's not a good feeling knowing someone can potentially hurt you, or you can get beaten up in front of all your friends and family. And yeah, I know, yeah, a good few people that are good in training and they can't bring the training into the actual competition, which is
Hmm.
sad because they have a lot of ability, but mentally they're just not strong enough, or they're just afraid.
Hmm. Is resilience the biggest lesson you've learned from boxing, or is there something else that's kind of stuck out for you?
I suppose, yeah, resilience is the biggest. Just having that ability to stick at something long enough, even though you can't see the end line throughout the journey. And that's probably where a lot of people probably fall away from their dreams and their goals, is they're not seeing results straight away. They're not being consistent enough and sticking at it. And as I said, ticking boxes, like consistently doing that over time, that's what will get you results. It might take longer than 3 months, 6 months, a year, but having that resilience to stick it out, especially when things get hard, it's easy to throw the towel in when things get hard. But the likelihood, if you're looking for results, you have to stick it out all the time.
I know we were originally got in contact talking about podcasts, and you've gotten really into them recently. Is there any particular lessons or anything you've just taken away from podcasts recently that you've just found really helpful or just interesting to listen to?
Yeah, so I was talking about the Dan Carr, the one that listened to on the High Performance podcast, and something that I had done coming up to the Olympics was like I would journal out my week. So in my notepad, I'd know exactly what I'm doing on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And that just gave me a little bit more of accountability. And on top of the accountability, it gave me structure throughout the week. So things weren't happening last second and I wasn't prepared. And I suppose post Olympics, I went off that and I haven't done it. And I only listened to the Dan Carter podcast on like Friday, and this week I'm back on track of things. So I've got the journal back out and I'm just hold myself a little bit more accountable to having structure throughout my week.
Okay, brilliant. I know we were chatting a bit before we hit record that your plans was to go to professionally. Obviously, the injury has kind of put a spanner in the works in that sense. But can you share with us kind of your goals or plans moving forward?
Yeah, like I don't know what's going to happen in terms of boxing. Um, but what I do know is what you learn through sport can transfer to other parts of your life. Eventually, I do want to own a gym. So obviously, the last 4 or 5 years, I've learned a lot of lessons. I've also networked with a lot of people in them 4 or 5 years that can help me business wise. So I'm definitely going to dip the toes into the possibility of opening a gym. Um, Especially with the experience I have in sport and being around high performance. I can I think I can offer a good I can make a good gym and offer something good to clients. So that's something that I'm thinking about. Boxing wise, I don't know. Like as I said, I'm 18 months injured now at the moment. Sometimes the body just isn't going to let you. But I'm going to see a shoulder specialist now in the next week or two and get his opinion on
Okay, very good. But that story is still being written. We'll move on to the
it.
sideline seven. It's the same 7 questions at the end of every episode. Question one: what is your favorite quote?
So I've said this before with a few friends. I'm just messing. It was like, "Smooth sea never made a skilled sailor."
Okay,
And we
very
just
good.
said a messing, but like when you actually think into it, and I'm not talking about from skill wise. I'm talking mentally here. It does, because like the tough road, the long road, whatever you want to call it, it learns you so much life lessons, and the amount of life lessons that I've learned throughout the 4 or 5 years. After going for the Olympics, there's something that's going to help me, as I said, going into business, going into later life, and it's something that's going to stand to me. So not that if I suppose if you're someone else and things are tough, there's always a lesson to learn from it.
Brilliant. I actually picked one out from your Instagram bio. Better people make better athletes. That's actually something I
Yeah,
heard Jim Gavin speak about recently.
yeah, and that as well. So that would have been like, um, although we were in an individual sport in terms of boxing, we train as a team, and one bad egg can upset the whole structure of the team, how people are feeling coming into training. We've all been there. We've worked with someone or we've trained with someone that you just don't like being around. and then like you don't like being around them, you might finish up training a little bit early just because you don't want to stick with them. That's going to have a knock-on effect on other people's performance. So yeah, better people do make better athletes, and they make better teams as well.
Brilliant. Question 2, what's the best sporting event you've been to? And you can pick one as a fan and one as like a boxing event you were involved in.
Yeah, so that'd be two. I'd say like I was obviously there when Kelly won the Olympic gold medal, and I'm friends with Kelly and I've trained with her for like 10 years. So for me, that was exceptional to see. But there was no fans there was no crowd there. But on a personal level, I was so proud of her, and it was great to see. And then two, I was at the Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano fight in New York, and as a spectacle, that was the best event I was ever at. In terms of atmosphere, the crowd itself was probably like maybe 60% Irish, 40% Puerto Rican. The fight itself was 50-50. So just made for a special atmosphere, and something that I don't think I'll ever get to witness again.
Brilliant. Question 3, what's been the biggest setback or challenge so far in your career, and how did you react to it?
It's the biggest setback is obviously the injuries I had. So you're talking about you're coming up to the biggest moment of your life, qualify for the Olympic Games, and within 6 months you catch COVID, get 2 elbow injuries, a rib injury, and a shoulder injury. That was very, very challenging mentally to try stay on top of things. And as I said, I'm mentally strong, but to know when your body's breaking down and still being able to try go over the line, that's a very, very tough task, especially when I had said earlier, I've never won a medal for Ireland. So to try go over that line and to try still have that belief when literally nothing else can go wrong. So that would be, the toughest task that I've ever done. And I suppose besides that, probably coming back to boxing, because at the time I was living a life of probably partying and drinking too much. So to turn around and completely change your lifestyle is something that I'm very proud of.
Brilliant. Looking back, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Yeah, again, that would be to back yourself, take risks earlier. Don't care what other people think, because like as well, like going after that Olympic goal, I done that at 25, and I really did back myself. As I said, I took out loans. I went financially broke for it. I really backed myself, and I really believed I was going to go over the line. If I had done that 7 years earlier, life could have been probably a lot easier. I probably could have getting to the Olympics a lot earlier. Back yourself.
Brilliant. I actually managed to skip one by accident. What's your biggest achievement in or outside the ring?
Biggest achievement would be qualifying. Yeah, that would be qualifying. Yeah, obviously, I've sort of answered that question already with the injuries that I had and the setbacks that I had to qualify. Basically, if you want to call it disabled in terms of boxing ability, because I only had one good shoulder. I had 2 bad elbows and 1 bad shoulder. To go over the line and not being able to train or compete was something special and something that I'll never forget. Outside of boxing, there's not really much going on. Like in terms of, look, I'm very good with my family. I'm a very good uncle to my nephews, something that I'm very proud of. So yeah, being a good role model to my nephews is an achievement that I'm very happy about.
Brilliant. Question 6, who would be your dream dinner guest and why?
You probably one of 2 people, Roy Keane and Michael Jordan. Roy Keane, again, I supported Manchester United as a kid, and he was my idol growing up. He was win at all costs, put the team before himself. I can always remember the semi-finals against Juventus where he got a yellow card and it meant he was going to miss the final, and he went out and had the best game of his life. And then he's also funny as well on top of it with his punditry. So yeah, it'd be a bit of crack. And then Michael Jordan, again, he's the ultimate winner. Again, he's done so much to put himself in the best position. He not like he didn't only look at himself, he looked at the people around him. He was making sure he was surrounded with the best people. He was making sure his manager had the best people in the best positions. Like he was like a player, a captain, a manager, everything all rolled into one. Obviously there's pros of that he became probably the best ever basketballer. There's negatives. He wasn't really liked by much people. I would imagine it's a very, very lonely life when you're that driven for success. But he's a person that I'd love to pick his mind.
I presume you watched The Last Dance, did you?
Yeah. It's
class.
It's class, but you can see from that how driven he is. Like everything he done revolved around being the best NBA player ever. And he realised to be the best NBA player, he had to have the best players around him. And that's something that a lot of people don't really look at. They probably think to be the best player, you have to be the best. But yet that is true. You also have to have the best players around you, the best backroom staff around you, the best manager around you, best agents. Everything has to be top quality.
Absolutely. Final question before I let you go. If your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
Right now, I thought about this resilience. The last year has been very, very tough. Obviously, I've been the longest I've been out of the sport since I've came back, and I haven't been in a ring to actually spar I haven't even sparred in a year. I think it was a year last week when I was fought in Tokyo. So it's been very, very tough, and a lot of the times it looks like the show is getting a little bit better, and then you get a knockback and you're back 2 or 3 months. I got an operation in January. I'm flirting with the idea of getting another operation now in the next month. I suppose even in terms of work, so I'm a personal trainer and I'm a boxing coach. I can't really work, so the potential to bring in money isn't really there. But I'm looking at other options now, and I'm not going to let the last year define me or stop me from getting to where I want to be. Like post Olympics, you have so much exposure. The chances of making money post Olympics is great, and all that was sort of took away from me. But I'm still optimistic and I'm still positive that I'm going to have a successful life in wherever thing I go into.
Brilliant. Well, I just want to wish you the best of luck with wherever life takes you in boxing and outside. And Emma, thanks a million for joining me on the podcast.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much for having me.
A big thank you to Emmet for joining me on the podcast today. I thoroughly enjoyed our chat and I hope you got something from it. I'll be sure to leave all of his social media links in the description box below, and I just want to wish him the very best of luck with his injury. If you are enjoying the podcast, I'd really appreciate if you leave a rating and a review over on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as it does help the show grow. Be sure to check out our social media channels for more, and as always, thank you for listening.